I'm recording. I'm recording. I'm recording. Don't come in here. Don't come in here. I'm recording.
Yo.
Hello. Sorry, my family just got home.
What's going on?
Can you hear me?
Speaker is not working. Ah, crap. I can't hear you.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's the setting I've got wrong here on my computer. It's telling me I've got something wrong. It says your speaker is not working. Check your connection or use a different speaker. I don't know what that means. What different speaker? I'm wearing fucking headphones. What speaker are they talking about?
I'm muted.
Just nod if you can hear me. Okay.
I can hear you.
Damn it. Ugh. This is very frustrating. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
There it is. Hey, finally, there it's working.
Oh, you're good?
Okay. I don't know.
Now I have an echo in there. Okay, I'm good. I think. They took the freaking carpet out of here. My wife is and now there's an echo.
Yeah, I definitely hear it.
Normally this thing doesn't. Let me change the batteries in here real quick.
All right. I was just listening to the most incredible record, and I'm so mad at how much I like it. I had such an attitude about it, but I'm listening to it, and it's like fucking incredible. It's called Chain Tripping by the band Yacht. I've never heard of them before, but I just watched this documentary about them. The reason it makes me so mad is that it's the first AI generated record in history, and it's so fucking good. I hate it. This is the first step. Terminator's destroying music.
I missed the beginning part of that because when I take the batteries out, I can't hear you. What is the AR thing?
I was just listening to this amazing record, the first ever AI produced record.
Oh, fuck
collaborating between a band and a record, and the record is amazing. I hate it.
I'm sure it still doesn't have the live feel. I can always tell the difference.
No, what the band did was they let the AI produce the record, but then they had to reproduce the record using their actual talent. The computer invented all the sounds and the melodies and the lyrics, and then they had to actually master that by actually being able to play it live.
Oh, so AI write the songs?
AI wrote the songs, the melodies. They could not add to that. They added no harmonies. They added no jamming. None of that. Not allowed to do that. They had the lyrics were produced in the same way, kind of that Bowie does his lyrics, where he used to do a thing where he'd cut out he'd make the song and then he'd cut lyrics out and move them around in the song, and so they were allowed to do that, but they had to keep the lyric as it was as the computer generated it. So it's sort of this bizarre poetry that they created. It's utter nonsense, but when it all comes together, it's just fucking perfect, and I hate it.
Perfect the first time, but after a while, it's going to get repetitive.
I'm listening to it. It sounds fucking amazing, and I hate it. I'm not even sure. I guess I'm not necessarily talking about the documentary because I'm under an embargo until the 17th on the documentary, but I'm talking about the record. The record's amazing. I'll tell you about the documentary later. Don't say I'm violating the embargo by talking about this.
Oh, only YouTube can hear it anyway, so.
I'm talking to the YouTube people.
Yeah, all three of you, if it's even that. So I got Amsterdam, Hellraiser, The Greatest Beer Run Ever, Hocus Pocus 2. I'll mention the 3 movies I saw. If you saw them, great. If you didn't, we'll just run right through them. Then we'll do Blonde, All About Eve, and then run through 92.
All right.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at CriticsPod. That is our handle. Subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. If you give us a 5-star review, we'll read it on the air, and we will give you a Blu-ray that Sean has gotten from one of our distributors.
Box of them.
Yeah, so send us those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, and we will read them on the air. Patreon.com/CriticsPod is the best way to support the podcast. And I'm sure there's other things I'm forgetting. TeePublic at IHateCritics.net. Click on the TeePublic link or look up CriticsPod at TeePublic.com. All right, let's just jump right into the show because it's been a while since I've been here, and we missed last week, and we'll just jump right into it with a movie I've been dying to see more than anything all year long, and my wife wouldn't let me see it because I have to see Don't Look Now before I can see anything else with her in the theater. So Amsterdam, please tell me it sucks.
Amsterdam is the latest movie from the team behind American Hustle, David O. Russell, Christian Bale, and it's got an all-star cast. And you may have heard this story, a part of this story anyway, because it's based on the story of the General Smedley. Oh gosh, what's his name? Smedley. I can't remember, but it's an episode of The Dollop from from years ago. Back episode 94 of The Dollop actually did this story from a different angle. The angle they did it from the angle of Robert De Niro's character, who we'll get to in a moment. But initially, the story starts with the meeting of Christian Bale and John David Washington. Christian Bale is a guy who enlists in the army to go to fight in World War I at the behest of his very rich family, his wife's family at least. They want him to be a war hero that'll make him fit in on Park Avenue for some reason. He ends up being assigned to a group of soldiers who are mostly black, and he is white, and he ends up befriending one of his lead soldiers, played by John David Washington, and that's how their relationship begins. It's World War I. It's a very bloody battle. They both get badly injured. They end up in a French hospital where Margot Robbie's character is, and she's acting as a nurse, and she takes care of them. And in the end, once the war ends, they all end up in Amsterdam together. And they spend a solid 6 months there together, just living and being friends. John David Washington and Margot Robbie are falling in love. Christian Bale is learning to become a better doctor and helping to treat wounded soldiers. And that's how he ends up going back to New York. He wants to help more wounded soldiers who are back home and see what he can do for them, sort of in a black market sort of way, because some of the treatments that he does are not necessarily above board. He's testing out various different types of drugs, and all that is very moving and also very funny. They get sucked into a plot when Taylor Swift's character shows up. She is the daughter of Ed Begley Jr. Ed Begley Jr.'s character is a former general. He was their commanding officer in World War I, and he was murdered recently, and she wants them to look into his murder, but then she gets murdered, and they get blamed for that murder. And a lot of things ensue, but it all comes down to them needing to convince a general played by Robert De Niro to give a speech at their military reunion. And this is where the Smedley Butler plot comes in. Smedley Butler was responsible for stopping American fascism pretty much on his own in 1934. At a time when Germany and Italy were rising in fascism, they were partnering with corporate America to find a way to undermine Roosevelt and install fascism in America. Smedley Butler was essentially the leader of the American Veterans Association. Now, all veterans listen to Smedley. And so if they wanted somebody who's going to be their dictator, it would be him. And that's the character that Robert De Niro plays here under a different name. But it's the same story. And what we're unfolding here is a plot to stop American fascism. It's a very weird movie. It's a very good-hearted movie. There's a lot of really interesting performances. This is the strangest script that David O. Russell has ever worked with, undoubtedly. The characters rarely ever talk like you would expect anybody to talk. Sometimes they speak in ways that are just a little too on the nose, a little bit too upbeat considering what they're up against, and that can be a little bit off. But as it gains momentum towards the end, it does get much better and much more interesting. And I love the twists and turns of this. And then when I started to recognize the story, I'm like, I know this now. It's like this is that episode of The Dollop. And once I realized that, I really became invested. And yeah, there's a lot of real fun things going on in this movie.
Yeah, I had read a couple bad reviews about it, but also, I mean, David O. Russell is very polarizing. People, to my favorite movie. I mean, Silver Linings Playbook was my favorite movie that year. American Hustle was my favorite movie that year. But people didn't like those movies too. You either loved them or hated them. There was like no in between. So I wondered if this was like that or not. But you kind of made it sound like it is its weirdest script. So.
One of the things that I read about this, and I passed this by very quickly because I wasn't sure what this could possibly mean, but somebody called this movie too woke, which kind of like blew my mind because it's about stopping fascism in America. So suddenly that's 30s. A woke value.
I mean, it is.
Like, this is way too woke for David O. Russell. I just that was a weird criticism. I kind of get what they were going for. Maybe this critic, whoever they are, who said that. I didn't want to spend too much time looking at it because I wanted to. Anytime I see the word woke on Twitter, I just kind of try and keep scrolling. You're not going to like it. Keep scrolling.
Right.
But there is a lot of I think there's a lot of treatment here of assimilation of blacks and whites. It's given a very a soft touch, I would say. John David Washington doesn't seem to face as much racism as you might think he would face, considering the situations that they find themselves in. They nod to it, but they don't really get into it. And I don't know, maybe that's my perception of history, that all black people were just simply mistreated all the time. And that's certainly not everyone's experience of being constantly mistreated by racism. I'm sure that's most people's experience at the time, black people, I mean, but it maybe wasn't this character's perspective. That said, these characters are invented characters to go alongside the business plot, as it was called on the dollop, and what it was called in history. It really did happen. The heads of 4 major corporations did try to take over this country using a general who would command the veterans to overtake Roosevelt and install Smedley Butler as the new president of the United States. That did happen, and it all hinged on Smedley Butler simply not doing that.
Jeez.
And you couldn't pick a better guy than Robert De Niro to sort of embody those values.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the whole cast is pretty amazing. I don't know how good they are in the movie or not. We're just looking at the names at the top of the poster here.
I think this has got a lot more fat on it than your typical David O. Russell movie. I think when I think of American Hustle, I don't think of it being 2.5 hours long. I feel that that movie feels much tighter. Even Silver Linings Playbook feels tighter because those characters are so sharp and they're constantly in the moment. This one does feel like it drags. I was making edits in my head of what you could take out of this to make it move quicker, and those elements I thought, yeah. I mean, it all makes sense in the end. You could see why he wanted them. There's a lot of scenes that would seem very precious to a director as they're written and as they're performed. Like, I don't want to lose that. That character is so good in this moment. Like I would imagine there's a couple here with Michael Shannon and Mike Myers, who play sort of partners in birding, if you will, and they have a couple of really great moments, and they're really terrific in it. But I could see where we might be able to take that out. The same could go for, say, the too many times that Anya Taylor-Joy seems to interject herself into the movie. She seems to be forcing herself in between all the other characters at times, and I think you could probably trim that back a little bit. Other than that, this movie, most of it, I think, is so very, very good. And it's such a great story that I think it holds together enough. But don't go into the dollop episode thinking you're going to find these 3 characters. Again, that one's specifically from the perspective of who De Niro is playing in this movie.
Don't worry about that. Yeah, I don't have much more other than I'm still very interested in it. Even though he can be a dick from what I hear, I really like his movies. David O. Russell, it is. So, how is Chris Rock? I know the big thing was Christian Bale couldn't be around him because Chris Rock made him laugh so much, and he fell out of character. So he did not interact with Chris Rock much. At least that was the narrative on the talk show scenes. Chris Rock is very straight in the movie. He doesn't typically go over the top. I'm sure there's probably some stuff on set that between takes,
yeah, but it's actually it's one of the more straightforward performances by Chris Rock. He's not on screen all that much, really.
Yeah. All right. Do you think it hangs around for award season, or is it too?
I think it's too polarizing, probably. I don't think it's quite as strong. Tone wise, it doesn't have the sharpness that Russell is so well known for. And that's it's a little too soft in the end.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to a movie I didn't even know existed. Hellraiser. Is this a remake, I'm assuming?
This is sort of a reimagining, I guess, a restarting with a new sort of idea. It's the similar to the original Hellraiser, but a full-on reimagining of the story and the characters. So the idea here is that this version of Hellraiser uh, is pushed forward by a character played by Goran Visnjic. He is a multi-billionaire who has gone so far in the direction of seeking pleasure that he's finally sought out the Cenobites, who he has, to his understanding, can promise him feelings beyond any imaginable. And so he seeks out the puzzle box. He uses various different people to open the puzzle box by poisoning them with the puzzle box, so he can get it to the proper configuration where he can have an audience with God. And whether he gets there or not, you'll have to wait and see. But his plot then requires him to allow the puzzle box to be stolen. That it does end up getting stolen by a former drug and alcohol addict who is our lead in the film, and she ends up getting cursed by the box. But the Cenobites don't want to take her; they want her to bring them other souls for them to take and torture. And this is all coming down to dealing with her and how her addiction has affected people in her life and the harm that she's done through her addiction. And that's it's not a movie that has, a lot of depth, but at least it gives that character a lot of depth, so that when you arrive at the biggest moment of this movie, it does have some resonance to it. Of course, the star of the film is the practical effects they use to create the gore and the violence. And I was really impressed with that. I was really impressed with how they created these new Cenobites. They're even more terrifying than they ever were before. I know there's a lot of different, makeup jobs that have been used to create the Cenobites in the past, but here it is on another level. This is directed by David Bruckner, who directed The Night House with Rebecca Hall, which was a tremendous psychological horror, and he brings that aspect to this alongside the tremendous practical effects and amazing makeup. It's a genuinely kind of a breathtaking horror movie, like kind of
Really?
Yeah, it's got really one of those couple of those scenes where you're kind of stuck, your stomach turns, you can't breathe for a second, and then it lets up on you. It's not quite as good as the other horror movies we've seen this year. It definitely has a lot that holds it back. I thought the casting could have been a little bit stronger overall, but the woman they got to play the Hell Priest, which is the actual real name of Pinhead. It's never been Pinhead. It's everybody. That's what the fans called it, Pinhead. The actual name of the character is Hell Priest, and she's awesome. That young woman, she is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we've never really liked any Hellraiser movies we've watched, so it's cool to see that somebody's done it okay.
Yeah, and how about Hulu going 2 for 2 on 80s movies with making the best Predator and now the best Hellraiser movie?
That is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Because even though we don't like it, Hellraiser is popular enough that it's gotten a million sequels. So that's pretty awesome. All right, let's move on to the greatest beer run ever.
And how this hasn't been an episode of The Dollop, I don't know, but it probably should be. Of course, they tell the story a lot better than this movie does. This is from the director of Green Book, and this is starring Zac Efron as a guy from New York, even though he seems to have more of a Boston accent, if you ask me. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. And the idea here is that he's got all of his buddies over in Vietnam, and he's watching the news, and the news isn't treating this. He doesn't feel they're treating the soldiers right, that they're framing the war as being a bad war. And he sees all these protesters outside, and they're not honoring his friends who are, putting their lives on the line in Vietnam. So he wants to show his friends that they're appreciated. So he gets this dumb idea in his head that he's going to pack a bag full of Pabst Blue Ribbon, hop a ship, because he actually does work on a ship. He's a merchant marine that happens to deliver stuff to Vietnam. So he's going to deliver himself to Vietnam via a merchant ship, and then go into the country and find his buddies and give them a beer and tell them that the guys in the neighborhood are thinking about him. And this guy really did this, and that's fucking insane. And the movie doesn't do enough to kind of underline how dumb that is, what a dumb idea that is. It wants to celebrate this guy as a blue collar hero and show him kind of learning that, hey, oh man, you know what? Vietnam, maybe it's not that great. Which is kind of what you would expect from the guy who directed Green Book, who kind of thought that maybe racism was, not that great. Racism, it's kind of bad. Vietnam, it's kind of bad.
Is this one of the Farley brothers that directed this?
Yeah, Peter, is it Peter Farrelly? Yeah. He is really a terrible director on his own. He has no edge. I want his grosser brother back. That guy, at least his contributions apparently were the gross part.
Yeah, I mean, what's weird is, both this and Amsterdam, in a different year would have starred like Zach Galifianakis and Kristen Wiig, and we've talked about movies like that in the past where, like, it would be great if they used like real actors, Matthew McConaughey or Zac Efron or Christian Bale. And here we are, and this one clearly appears to have shit the bed a little bit. It's a great title. It's maybe it would have been great with Nicolas Cage 30 years ago or something like that, as always. Or even something the Russell Crowe character is barely in the movie based on your review.
Yeah, Russell Crowe plays a character who's a reporter in Vietnam, and he's the guy who kind of gives him a little bit more perspective about what's happening in Vietnam. And he has a couple of experiences that where he nearly loses his life that kind of, like, again, contributes to the idea that maybe Vietnam wasn't good. How you make a movie about Vietnam, about a guy going to Vietnam, and then the idea isn't that, holy shit, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, it misses the absurdity of this. Like, this is an absurd story. It needs to be treated with the kind of absurdity of the idea of a blue collar guy going into Vietnam to drop off Pabst Blue Ribbon to his buddies. That's absurd. And this movie has no absurdity. They just want to treat this guy like a blue collar legend. It's like he's like a man of genius, from the beer commercials. Like, that's the level of insight that we're getting here.
I think you're right. If it were a Fairley Brother comedy, similar to this, if you did it from that angle, it probably worked way better than this Green Book angle. I don't know. That's a disappointment.
Totally forgettable movie, and thankfully not going to get the Green Book treatment at the award shows.
Yeah. Hocus Pocus 2, the movie everybody's talking about.
Oh, yes. Is this your favorite movie of the week?
No, it is the first one I've seen so far, though.
Hocus Pocus 2 returns the Sanderson sisters, the Sanderson witches, Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and Sarah Jessica Parker, back to life via their black flame candle and the machinations of a magic shop owner and three young teenagers with ideas of being witches themselves. It's fine. It does what it does. Doug Jones pretty much steals the movie as the character whose head is being sought. He's a zombie character. He's very funny and very charming, and I really enjoyed Doug Jones. And Sam Richardson is very good in this movie as well. The three young women who play the new main characters are good. They do their jobs well, and you can sense that Kathy Najimy, Bette Midler, and Sarah Jessica Parker are having a great time, riffing on the product placement of Walgreens. That's one thing that definitely happens for far too long in this movie. Very Adam Sandler-esque, I would say.
The fact that it's Walgreens. The fact that it's Walgreens is almost humorous, though.
Yeah.
Like, why would you product place Walgreens?
I mean, what is a pharmacy but a modern day apothecary? I get it.
Right. But you're right. I mean, at worst, this would be a bad movie. At best, it's harmless.
Yeah.
So
harmless fluff that'll satisfy a shockingly large cult audience that I still don't understand for this movie. I think this is better than the original because I thought the original wasn't a very good movie.
Yeah.
I've since then I've had fans tell me like I'm being too mean or whatever. No.
I mean, I tried to get my family to watch The Monster, and this is all I could get them to watch. I had to watch that alone.
That sounds like quite the experience.
It's fine. Same type of deal.
Yeah.
At worst, it's a bad movie. At best, it's harmless fun.
Mm.
Anyway, I watched a movie called To Leslie with Andrea Riseborough, who's also in Amsterdam.
Was this where was this on?
This I had to rent from streaming. Mark Maron's, and I saw it all over Instagram, so I was like, oh, I'll check this one out.
Oh man, I've been dying to see this. Yes, this is available. I didn't even know this was available.
Yeah, it came out this weekend. I mean, we can shove it to next week since we only have Halloween ends. I liked it a lot. I'd love to know your opinion on it. So I did watch it. If you want to show it, let's do that, because I want to make sure I'm not,
Might be a tad out of place amidst all of the Halloween movies.
I don't know, man. It's I don't know. I thought it was really, really watchable, and I'm a big Mark Maron fan, obviously. And at first, it took a while for me to get used to him with a Southern accent, but he does a good job. It's just me, projecting on how much I know him from the podcast and the stand-up. But once it gets going, I really given him the whole movie. It's about a woman named Leslie who wins the lottery and then drinks it all away. It just ruined. I mean, she's basically homeless, has to move back to her hometown where she was from, and just go through the embarrassment of losing her family and losing all of her money. And it's just watching her deal with that and try to get sober. And it's surprise. It's just one of those really watchable movies you would never guess is watchable. The performances are great. It's just a really good movie. Great. I mean, obviously Andrea Riseborough steals the movie because she's the lead, but all the supporting characters are great. I really liked it a lot. I'm definitely curious to your opinion when you get a chance to see it.
Yeah, I definitely want to see it. I meant to see it. I didn't even know it was available.
Yeah, movies are so weird nowadays.
The release schedule is bizarre.
Thank you, COVID. I don't know if you've heard of this one, Luckiest Girl Alive with Mila Kunis. It's on Netflix. I think it just
another one
out.
I meant to watch and then totally forgot about.
This is kind of a rape movie that leads to a school shooting movie. But with all of it that it's got contained in it, I think it was pretty well done. Mila Kunis does a great job, dealing with both the school shooting that she was involved in along with the rape. And it takes its time, letting you know what exactly happened. And, we don't, I mean, it is kind of a mansplaining version of this movie, I guess. I think it was directed by a man, but it's still a very good movie. I couldn't stop watching. I put it on late last night, and it kept me awake the entire time, which that doesn't happen very much anymore. So I'm curious, again, was I tired? Am I giving this movie too much credit? I thought it was really good, but again, I don't think this one specifically is an award-winning movie by any means. I think To Leslie could be in certain, not Oscars, but certain small independent, type awards. But I thought they were both really good. And obviously, I saw The Monsters again, harmless fun, at worst bad. So
yeah, great. I wish Netflix would do a better job of telling people when their movies came out. Like that one I totally didn't know about. Really, they drop things so quickly on. And Apple Apple's even worse.
Apple's the worst.
Apple TV is the absolute worst. Absolutely. The way they drop things, like they've got two amazing documentaries they've told nobody about Sidney Poitier and Louis Armstrong, and they've told nobody that those are there. And they did that with Coda last year, which somehow that movie survived that ridiculous way that Apple puts out movies. I mean, Cha Cha Real Smooth is one of the best movies of the year, and nobody's seen it because Apple did nothing to promote it.
And the movies we do see from Netflix are the ones we don't want to see, which we'll get to that in a second. But I would say like HBO and Peacock are probably the best.
Peacock does a great job. The Peacock, I get good shout, because Peacock does a great job of telling you when their movies are out, and you don't wind up being surprised when they're already out there.
Now, also, though, Peacock doesn't release like 17 movies a week like everybody else does, so there's that as well. But anyway, one movie we all knew was coming was Blonde on Netflix. And I'll try to be the devil's advocate. You be the genuine review, because I agree with what you're going to say, but I'll do my best to try to defend a sociopath. Anyway, go ahead.
I hate this movie. This is the latest attempt to cash in on the life of Marilyn Monroe by Netflix. They already did it with a terrible documentary they released, and now here they are using Ana de Armas to capitalize on Marilyn Monroe. And it's a real shame, because Ana de Armas could play Marilyn Monroe, and I think she probably could do it very well, but she's trapped inside of a story here that is just about exploiting Marilyn Monroe as a sex object, as the subject of our imagination, as the most talked about and thought about and written about and considered life on the planet. And she did indeed live a pretty incredible life during her time, but man, I don't know what anybody making this movie thought they were accomplishing by showing us the things that they show us in this movie. I don't know why, for instance, we were inside Marilyn's vagina. What exactly, Andrew Dominic, was it that you thought, well, she has the most examined life in the world. Why don't we, while she's having a miscarriage, go inside of her vagina? Just kind of underline the point that, because, she's the most examined woman in the world. She's only the most well-known human being on the planet. Where have we not gone? Inside her vagina. Let's go there. What a piece of crap. This movie begins by placing her in this three-way relationship that she's in with two guys who are sons of Hollywood legends, Charlie Chaplin and Edward G. Robinson. I'm not sure. I
forgot the other one.
Yeah, they fall into this throuple situation, and it's almost as if they want to like use this modern term throuple and apply it to Marilyn Monroe, almost like it's some kind of you see how the culture hasn't changed, like, or how we can relate this to the modern culture. And like, fuck you. Do you even know that this happened? I mean, is this speculation? Is this real? Who cares? It's all about showing them having three-way sex. It's all about showing her naked. It's, just that, and the nudity, the NC-17, I don't know what the intent of that was, other than a marketing campaign. Ana de Armas, she's going to be very naked and playing Marilyn Monroe. Here you go, guys. Jerk off all you want. I'm sure that's what Andrew Dominic was doing behind the camera the entire time, was jerking off, because he certainly wasn't directing a very good movie. They portray the relationship between her and President Kennedy by having her take a load on her face for some reason from the president while he's negotiating a deal. We have no idea any of that could have possibly been real or not. We don't know, but thanks for the constantly visiting indignities upon her is just what this movie is all about. Just torturing her for no good reason, by just heaping indignity upon indignity, whether it's the men in her life constantly betraying her with violence, whether it's her constantly being exploited for her sexuality. It's just this constant barrage of hateful imagery aimed at this woman. And I don't know why. I don't know what Andrew Dominic was hoping to accomplish with this. I would love to understand it, but it to me, this movie it ranks next to a movie like Hostel for me. The way that he seems to not merely present the torture of Marilyn Monroe, but almost like, you know what, she kind of deserved it. Like I'm kind of enjoying doing this to her. And it's that twisted sensibility that really disgusts me, on top of the things that Andrew Dominik has then gone on to say about why he made this movie. He is a disgusting individual, a complete moron, by the way, who, criticizes gentlemen prefer blondes without ever having fucking seen it. Hey, fuck you. She's not playing a fucking whore in the movie, you asshole. Sorry, I'm getting angry because Andrew Dominik can kiss my ass.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really able to totally do the devil's advocate thing. Here's Netflix was very, if you look at the way they describe the movie, is a fictitious account or whatever. Mm. Andrew Dominik in his interviews is saying it's just as true as everything else you've ever seen. He's very, there was no joy in this movie. So I don't even I guess I'll disagree with you in terms of, I don't think he was enjoying, other than the artistic whatever. I think he was caught up in that, which to me makes him kind of a sociopath. But I don't think, this is a weird statement to say as a 42-year-old, but I don't know who watches this to jerk off to it, because there's nothing fun. The nudity is not sexy. It's not fun. It's horror. It's depressing. And in his interviews, well, she killed herself. So I just want to show why she killed herself. And it was just he said that a bunch in interviews. And it, to me, that's why are you making this movie? Yeah. Why not use a fictitious character? And even then, it's super long. Anna de Armas is good. She disappears into the role. I don't feel like I'm watching Anna de Armas, but it's not a fun movie to watch. There's nothing you gain from it. I don't know.
There's no insight. You don't learn anything about her other than
her life was miserable.
She was a constant subject of misery. There's only misery in this woman's life. And
it's like he's trying to go back and explain why, because of her relationship with her father or whatever. And it was just but it's complete. I guess it's based on a book that was completely made up. Mm-hmm. But from what I understand, the book's not even really you're not really even able to make that book into a movie. So why did he try to? And then it makes you look at his other movies and wonder, how good are they really? How much liberties that he takes with those stories, and especially the ones that are supposed, quote unquote, true. I was hoping this was going to be good prior to it coming out, just based on I never really hated Andrew Dominik up until I kind of liked.
I've never really had much of an opinion of him. I thought Killing Me Softly is a bad movie, but it's bad in a very uninteresting way. And the coward Robert Ford, the Jesse James movie with Brad Pitt is good because Brad Pitt and Casey Affleck are really good, and the cinematography is okay, but it's over long. It drags a lot.
That is true, and it didn't bother me as much at the time, but looking back at it, it definitely it seems to, this makes me kind of question that a little more. Obviously he's got skills. This looks good. But the whole, everything about it is just depressing, and it's just makes you feel dirty. And I don't know. Even the NC-17 wasn't because of the nudity. It's because of probably being inside of her, not to mention the John F. Kennedy scene. Yeah. You could have trimmed a couple of things and it's easily an R. And that doesn't make it any better. It still sucks. And it just, more so than almost any other movie I've ever seen, this makes you want to take a shower afterwards, because it just makes you feel gross. And it's not Hostile. It's not a horror movie. But it's more disgusting than almost all of them. And then the fact that she's a real person makes it even worse. So, some people have given her praise, but obviously he's got skills in terms of look, but the whole I don't know, the depth or the bulk of the movie is just torture. I mean, it's hard to watch. There's just no joy. I mean, like, you used that before in movies, but more so than any other movie I've ever seen, there's not an ounce of joy in this thing.
No.
And it's Marilyn Monroe who has given a lot of people joy in terms of the movies and art she's produced. So,
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and there's if it was Truffaut or Godard said if you want to critique a movie, make another movie. My Week with Marilyn with Eddie Redmayne and Michelle Williams makes the same points without any of the nonsense. It shows why it demonstrates her sadness, her humanity, her career. It gets to the heart of all of those things without ever having to exploit her or treat her like she wasn't a human being. And Michelle Williams, it makes Marilyn a full-breathed human. And why, I mean, Ana de Armas seems to be capable of that. She seems to want to do that. But I'm sure somewhere in the editing, they removed that. They removed the full aspect of who Marilyn was in favor of just visiting horrors upon her constantly. And you can see where Ana de Armas is kind of trying to draw on the lines and the edges here a little bit. And she's just constantly undermined by scene after scene of just humiliation, violence, and just pure exploitation. It's really awful. And I hate it. I hate it more the further I get away from it, the more I hate it.
yeah, I mean, like, it's exactly, you did a great job there. I mean, this is nothing but sadness. Everybody, yes, she had a tragic ending to her life, but everybody in this world is not nowhere 100% bad or 100% good, or their life isn't 100% sad or 100% happy. There's ups and downs, and this is just down the entire time. And he's mentioned in interviews, Andrew Dominic, that he has no interest in showing anything other than the sadness because she killed herself. Did she even kill herself, or was it a drug overdose? I mean, there's so much we don't know, and it doesn't matter that we don't know it. I don't know. It just really is gross and not fun.
And just a complete disregarding of her true talent, because I mean, Marilyn Monroe was incredible. Watch the movies, Andrew. She's actually fucking brilliant. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is a great performance. And I've always argued that 7-Year Itch is one of my favorite movies of all time. He gives that no regard here other than the dress scene, because everybody's looking up her dress. See, she's being exploited, which of course was not the point of that scene at all in the movie, but fine, whatever. Portray it, you're not portraying it correctly in any way, but fine, sure. She was amazing in her performances. She was great just in so many movies. And in behind the scenes, yes, she had trouble with men. There were male directors were not good people in the 50s in a lot of ways, and they did not they did not take her seriously. They did not treat her well, and she tried so hard. You can see from her time with the people who actually cared about her, when they talk about her, how she tried so hard with Lee Strasberg to become an actor, to be a real actor, and to embody her characters. And then she gets on the set, and people are just like, boobs, your boobs. Like, I mean, she wants to deliver a performance, and they're just all staring at her. I mean, that's sad, but that's a more nuanced interpretation than anything in this fucking movie.
But the more interesting thing, I mean, Luckiest Girl Alive does this better, is when you go through the sadness and the negativity, you live with it. And sometimes there is a positive in your life while you're going through the negative. There's an up and a down, even with all the sadness, provided she was that sad. And they don't even attempt to show that. I mean, even if you look at the real life stuff with Harvey Weinstein that went around. I mean, people liked him. People were, Meryl Streep, they could even call him God at award shows. So it's never as simple as just constantly sadness and negativity. And there's a way to do that with a made up character, and, to show to examine living with the sadness and everything else that goes with it, and being guilty for being happy, but this doesn't even try to do anything other than just depress you. And I just don't get it.
No, I mean, go back and watch My Week with Marilyn, and you'll get a far better idea of somebody who actually plays Marilyn with a little bit of care.
Absolutely. And again, I'm not here to shit on Andy Armas. I don't know what she knew going into this. This is Andy
not in charge of
Dominic
the
all
edit.
the way.
He can't control what the final product was, and I don't think this is the product she signed up for.
Right. But we will now talk about our classic, which is one of Marilyn Monroe's first movies, if not the first.
I believe this is her first role. Yes, the first role where she has some lines and you can see her, and she has a named character.
All About Eve.
All About Eve is not about Marilyn Monroe's character. She is in the movie, and she does really well. She gets a couple of really great scenes, and it's the character is treated with a little bit of dignity, and I appreciate that. All About Eve is actually about a character played by Eve Harrington, and a character named Eve Harrington, and a character named Margot Chandler, played by Bette Davis. Eve Harrington is a young woman who has the ambition to become an actress, and her ambition is explored when she finds her way into the circle of her favorite actress, Margot Chapman. Margot, I forgot her name now. Bette Davis's character. She invites her in. She insinuates herself into the life of this group of friends, and eventually uses that as a catapult to get herself onto the stage. And there's so many amazing things about this. Firstly, Joseph L. Mankiewicz, for all of his limitations as a visual director, his wit, the wit of this script, the wit of these characters is so sharp and so well pronounced. Bette Davis is pronouncing the words of Joseph L. Mankiewicz is kind of like, it reminds me of like John Stockton passing to Michael Jordan. Like it's just the perfect marriage of that, of that aspect, the best at what they do, going between each other, Mankiewicz and Bette Davis. Bette Davis is incredible. She's just the greatest actress of all time, perhaps. And this is her greatest performance. She's just so on top of this character, and so on top of what this character is intended. And what I found, even beyond just the movie itself and its wit and its humor and its lessons about the entertainment business and Hollywood, and stars aging out of being stars and whatnot. What I found was this idea of duality and what these characters mean today in very different ways. And what I found is that Eve Harrington sort of represents this idea that you chase everything you want with all of your ambition, and how that can be sort of lead to the anxiety of having that all taken away. Whereas if you're somebody like Bette Davis or Margot, who has just her talent is innate, it's already defined, it's confidence versus anxiety. It's like the truth versus the lie. Eve Harrington is the lie, Margot is the truth. And those two ideas, where the truth is going to win out in the end because she has actual talent, whereas Eve will never know in her entire life whether or not she's really talented, because she's used this opportunity here and there to get to where she is. She's used DeWitt, the character DeWitt, who is amazingly played in this movie by George Sanders. He's a columnist, and he uses his power to raise her up. And whether or not she's ever going to be able to trust anybody, she's going to go through her life with this anxiety of potentially being exposed. Whereas Margot has gone throughout her entire life being Margot. She was born Margot. She is Margot. She will always be Margot. She will always be the most talented person in the room. And Bette Davis was like that too. Bette Davis walked onto a set as Bette Davis, knowing who Bette Davis was, knowing that she was the best there was, and could say to anybody, like, you may not like me, I don't care. I can do what I do on somebody else's movie. You need me. I don't need you. And at the time, that labeled her as a bitch, that labeled her as a problem among the studios, among the directors. That's part of why her career declines after this, and she doesn't get the roles that she probably deserved to get, because she knew how talented she was and she could tell you how talented she was. And that's kind of what she kind of expresses all of that through Margot. And that's what makes me love this movie so much. Is why it's one of my all-time favorite films. I've watched it hundreds of times. I watched it twice to get ready for this show because it's incredible that way. I was, I'm just blown away by the way this film is still so resonant, and how fucking sad it is that, being that this movie is 72 years old now, nobody watches it, nobody knows it anymore.
The crazy part is it holds up though. It's an easy watch. It's not one of those where it's homework and you gotta get through it. It's a very easy watch. And even the truth versus the lie is there's more depth than that. I mean, you're saying it that way to describe it, but the truth gets knocked down a peg, and the lie takes, and they really do a great job of making you interested in that. And it is weird that Betty Davis' career would go down after this movie, when this movie is literally about that very thing that affected her career later on. In a lot of ways, it's brave that she would do a movie like this, at the age she was, and being aware of Hollywood at that time. It's just a really, really good. I was just shocked at how much I did like it. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. You kind of say, "Oh, it is really the perfect movie," and there's no reason not to go back and watch this one, because it really does. And even like, I could see certain kids going back and watching this and being able to get through it and not be bored. I mean, some probably would be anyway, just because that's who they are. But it's definitely worth checking out. And I don't see this movie ever like truly going away. There's always going to be that theater kid that discovers it or whatever. And I don't know. I'm glad I've seen it. It's another one of, another notch in the of movies that I hadn't seen before, and it really is very, very good.
You've got to see Of Human Bondage, because that's another of Betty Davis's best performances, and just that movie is fucking heartbreaking. So I can't recommend it enough.
It's just amazing though that how there's no. There was no studio that's ruining movies back then like they are today. Like there's no the Reese Witherspoon run that she had, or I don't know why I picked her. There's a million other actresses who had worse runs, but really just all these romantic comedies with no substance at all. Every single one of these movies that has substance of some sort, even the ones that are hard to watch because they don't hold up, there's still a substance there. It's just, I don't know. That's what I love most about going back this far. It is something that seems like homework going in, but once you get going, it just amazes me how much more depth there is to these movies than a lot of movies that exist today. That's why it's so exciting when we do find one that does have that kind of depth. And
what else I observed while watching this? That is that Betty Davis is 46 when she makes this, the same age as I am right now. And I was struck by the fact that, why are adults so much more adult back then?
I thought the same thing, because she's playing 42, which is the age I am right now. And it's like, you're just like, she seems so much more grown up than I am right now.
I think I've been to one like thing that I could genuinely call a cocktail party in my entire life.
Yeah,
they seem to have cocktail parties constantly, and then they're having tea, and it's like, when was this part of life?
Well, and I don't know, it's never been part of mine.
But all the men in the movie are in their 40s. They look like what they should be in their 60s because they've been smoking and drinking since they were 15 years old. I
Right.
imagine that speeds along the aging process. That's got to be the explanation.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, that is a really good observation. Uh, yeah, but I definitely, if you have a chance to go check out this movie, it's worth doing, especially if you want to do a run of classic movies. Uh, this is definitely one to make sure you throw on your list to see.
Mhm. And for anybody who wants to become, if you're a woman who wants to become an actress, just fall down the Betty Davis rabbit hole for a little while, and you're definitely going to come away with something you would not expect.
Yeah, I mean, you can go down the Meryl Streep or whoever else, but you definitely got to at least research Betty Davis and see something. I mean,
The thing is,
just
and I feel weird pointing it out, but like she was not conventionally attractive, and never once in her career was she that typical ingenue that Hollywood was always searching for, and always was searching around her for. Like, here's the most amazing actress in the world, but who's that blonde behind her? Betty, could you step over here for me? Like, I've got to get to the really conventionally attractive one. Uh, and that happened to her so many times in her career. And she still found, the best material to work with, and took bad material and made it into good material, because you cannot deny real talent. And that's what she was. She was real talent.
yeah, that's, I know you're 100% right. And I mean, everybody who's talented, even today, I mean, even Meryl Streep's not conventionally, and there's plenty of guys too. I'm just, I don't know,
We focus on it more with women. Obviously,
for
men can get
sure.
away with it, because men were running the industry then. They're mostly still running the industry in a lot of ways, and thankfully, the gears of time are shifting a little bit on that. But yeah, that used to be the thing that happened all the time. I fell in love with Betty Davis. I did, regardless of whatever conventional attractiveness is. When I saw Of Human Bondage, I was hooked.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Uh, I'll try to find a week where you can throw it in. All right, in 1992, we got a couple weeks worth of movies. This is, at least in terms of, as far as I can tell, of all this is the most movie snob movie out there. But Glengarry Glen Ross, Hero, The Mighty Ducks, Mr. Baseball, Mice and Men, Running Mates, 1492, Conquest of Paradise, River Runs Through, and Under Siege. I love Glengarry Glen Ross, always have. Especially being a business person, it's just
you can always tell the person who doesn't understand Glengarry Glen Ross by how often they quote Kevin Spacey. It's like the people who quote Tyler Durden in Fight Club. Like, you're missing the point.
right. Yeah, that's
People who
hilarious.
unironically watch Boiler Room.
Yeah, I do like whenever I hire a sales guy, I'm like, here, I'll give him this and used cars with Kurt Russell. I'm like, don't do that. Do it out to my guys. Watch Alec Baldwin. I know it pisses off the playwright because it wasn't in the play. Anyway, next week it's all things Halloween. Halloween Ends comes out. Sure, we'll talk about other stuff. We're gonna go through all the Halloween movies as best we can.
Even Hollywood 3.
Yeah, I've never actually seen the season of The Witch. Is that any good?
It's fun. I don't call it a good movie, but it's fun.
I'll definitely have to watch that one. I've seen a lot of them.
You've never seen Halloween 3.
No.
Put that at the top of the list of the
Oh yeah, that'll be the one I make sure I see that Halloween Ends.
Yeah, and I mean, we've both seen Halloween enough. I'm thinking we probably don't have to watch it again.
I mean, I'll be honest, I think the only ones I don't know if I've seen like H2O and Resurrection, that run.
Mhm.
I've seen 4, 5, and 6, obviously the Rob Zombie ones. But yeah, it'll be a week of Halloween and with kind of a focus on Season of the Witch.
And I do have an article up about why Halloween means so much to us, and it's kind of a breaking down of the ideas of why, there's a different reason why each of the horror film villains still sort of resonate today for various different reasons. And the the dynamic between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers is different because I think part of it is that Freddy doesn't have a protagonist who sticks with him the entire time. Jason obviously kills everybody in front of him. Those characters don't last. But when you have Laurie Strode and you have Michael Myers, and then you have their family dynamic, what you have is this again, to go back to the concept of duality, the way that they sort of mirror each other's lives. And I made a point in the article about how, for him to die, or for him to die, she's probably going to have to die. Like, that's the only way it works, And Jeff, our cousin Jeff, pointed out that that's probably how this is going to work out.
Right, and it's the cynic in me wants to be like, well, Jamie Lee Curtis, the big star, so maybe that's why Laurie Strode seems more relevant. At the same time, and then the fact that they're not making Freddy and Jason movies right now, but they are making Michael Myers movies.
Mm-hmm.
But then you throw in the fact that Halloween was kind of the first of these type of blockbuster horror. I don't know. I think you're right, because even if you look at love it or hate it, probably the most watched of all the remakes between Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween was Halloween. Even though it wasn't Jamie Lee Curtis, still that character, I don't know, their dynamic does I don't know, there seems to be more depth with Halloween than there is the other two.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I think, and it's about how what Michael Myers represents in the life of Laurie Strode is similar to what your problems represent in your actual life. It's this constant, unending attack, if you will, that occasionally lets up for you to have a family and life and a little bit of joy, and then back come your problems, raging in with a knife coming after you. I think there's something there in that, the idea that Michael Myers doesn't die. He's like problems that accumulate and don't go away. Is it bills, whether it's anxiety, whether it's health problems, all those things that accumulate, Michael Myers can stand in as a representative of, because he doesn't die. He never goes away. Your problems don't go away unless you deal with them. And Laurie Strode continuously has to deal with her problem, that is Michael Myers. Just as you have to deal with your problem of whatever is your greatest challenge.
Absolutely. And putting 3 aside, 4, 5, and 6 are easily the weakest, because that's when he goes full on Jason Voorhees, more or less.
Yeah. Because
Laurie Strode doesn't really exist in those movies. So that's absolutely
also interesting to see just how many times, like, they retcon this. And I believe in one of the movies from the early 2000s, like, Laurie Strode seems to die, but they've totally retconned that out of existence to make these modern movies, which I'm not a fan of either of the last 2 movies. I don't think they're very good, but I still think that the overall idea of Michael and Laurie is good. Just I don't think the movies are particularly well made.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I just we'll dig into more of it next week, because why not? Let's see how we go on time. We got a little bit of time. Let's try a little bit of flip shot real quick before we go, if you got time for that.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Let's see, where are we at here? There's our Twitter. Hey, here's Zoom. Move our box. Where the hell is it?
It's right there in the middle. Right in the middle. There you go.
God, I can't get to it because it's blocked by the share. All right, let's move it up, log in, and
our password is no, I don't know.
Ever After or Hudson Hawk?
Ever After. I know it's a better movie. Hudson Hawk has an ironic appeal.
If you want to say that, I hate Hudson Hawk. I remember being such a Bruce Willis fan, I'm finally going to watch that. What the fuck is this? Defiance or Die Hard 2?
Well, I mean, Defiance is kind of like forgettable and boring in a very uninteresting way. Die Hard 2 is bad in a far more interesting way. So I guess I'll go with that one.
Fiddler on the Roof, Seabiscuit.
Fiddler on the Roof.
Great Escape, All the President's Men.
All the President's Men.
Mighty Wind, Hustlers.
Hustlers.
Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, Along Came a Spider.
Along Came a Spider. I find Lemony Snicket to be insufferable.
Wanted, House of Flying Daggers.
House of Flying Daggers.
Midsummer, Fight Club.
Midsummer.
First time it's been on here. Documentaries don't count, right? Are we doing documentaries? Or
I mean, I'd vote for Andre the Giant over Lady Killers.
so, I don't hate it.
It's impossible to hate a Coen Brothers movies. They can be not as good as other Coen Brothers movies. That's the standard.
Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom.
Wonderland, just because I'm so tired of all it. I may have even liked Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. I just don't remember which one it is, and that's a bad sign.
Yes, I had to guess the second of the next or the last three, but I'm not positive of that. I definitely wouldn't. Fantasia 2000, Rescue Dawn.
Rescue Dawn. I don't remember Fantasia 2000 at all, but I kind of remember Rescue Dawn just because it's Christian Bale's in it.
Return from Witch Mountain, Racer.
You know why we got Return from Witch Mountain, right?
I don't.
Betty Davis is in it.
So that wins, right?
Yeah, why not? In honor of Betty Davis.
Ray, Moana.
Moana.
Oh, Raging Bull. It's not really fair.
That's not. I mean, man, I love Up so much. I mean, in terms of rewatchability, Up,
Oh,
I would rather watch Up, but Raging Bull is Raging Bull.
right.
It's got to be Raging Bull, I guess.
Yeah, but that's one that's close because I mean, Up one is great and it's the watchability is so high.
Mm-hmm.
Raging Bull, great with the watchability being kind of in the middle, mid tier, but it is so good.
It's so good. It's undeniable.
Legend, Copland.
Copland, I guess.
It's Copland with a question mark. That's fair. Couldn't agree more. UHF, you're next.
UHF.
Never know there. I'm weird now. Meet the Robinsons or Dial M for Murder.
Dial M for Murder. But I Meet the Robinsons is actually pretty good.
How to Survive a Plague.
Not seen that one.
Grandma's Boy, Crumb.
Crumb. Fuck Grandma's Boy.
That's a cult classic.
No.
I've never actually seen it.
Only if
Stigma,
you're really high. Point Break.
Stigmata,
Point Break.
Rocky, Big Trouble Little China.
Rocky.
This is me versus my brother. Tenet, Ocean's 11.
Tenet.
What's that quarter at?
I think Tenet's pretty good.
I think it's fine. I just feel like Ocean's 11. Maybe then. Most always. Night and Day, Dallas.
Night and Day.
Smooth Talk, iRobot.
I'm not familiar with Smooth Talk. Looks like Laura Dern, but I don't recognize it.
Just Scared of the World, Part 1, iRobot.
Where are you going?
I'm not the world's biggest Mel Brooks fan. From Marilyn and I Robot, but I'm not like dead set on it. I don't hate Mel Brooks.
Yeah, I love Mel Brooks. That's my least favorite Mel Brooks. It's got some good gags, but it's very, very long. iRobot isn't for what it is. I mean, Will Smith is doing his charismatic Will Smith thing, and the idea is not bad. The special effects are not bad. There's something about it that just makes it come up just short of being as good as it could be. But I'm gonna pick that one nevertheless. I talked myself into it.
Pacific Rim Wolf.
Oh, I could not care less which one's that. I don't know. I hate Pacific Rim, but Wolf, my memory of it is pretty bad.
Yeah, that one should have been with that cast.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer. We should still be talking about that to this day.
Yes. Agreed. That's a good one.
Pacific Rim's a shitty idea made as good as you can make it. Am I wrong?
They're not wrong. No, but on that front, I would say Wolf is a more ambitious failure. So let's go with that one.
All right. I'm all for that. Spanglish, Mr. Megorian's Wonder in Emporium.
Spanglish. That's the one that doesn't have Dustin Hoffman in it.
Hugo, Dial M for Murder.
Hugo's wonderful, but it's Dial M.
Yeah, Hugo's it's kind of like Raging Bull. It's hard to turn on. Ooh, this is a tough one.
That is very hard.
Blood Simple Wilderness Sunshine.
Good God, they're so different, but they're so good.
And what's so weird is where I'm leaning is the opposite where I would guess it would be. Like I'd assume I'm leaning Blood Simple, but I'm actually leaning Wilderness Sunshine.
I am too. Yeah. Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah, that
very
was
weird and difficult.
That was probably the closest to the fun stuff for me.
Oh man.
Serendipity, Town and Country.
It's a Josh tribute pick because Town and Country is one of the worst movies ever made. It is absolutely unwatchable garbage. Whereas Serendipity is at least passable garbage.
It's unpleasant. Let's see what we got.
Rabbit of Seville is short.
The 10 Commandments, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Tell Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is because the 10 Commandments has been inflicted on far too many people over the years.
The Babadook, The Blind Side.
The Babadook.
Blind Side's blue. It's with every bit of it passes. Ant-Man and the Wasp, coming through from the 2.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Did I send you the Tenacious D concert that I went to?
No, I don't think so.
There's a whole YouTube video. Like, the whole concert was tapes that I saw. I think you'll enjoy it. Then 9 Inch Nails went on right afterwards. Super Mario Brothers, Lake Placid.
Lake Placid.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Last one, the Vacation remake, Gandhi. Which one are you going to sit through, Sean?
I would rather do 4 hours of homework on Gandhi than ever see Vacation again. That's how bad Vacation is.
You hated that movie.
I still hate that movie to this moment.
Yeah. I've never actually seen Gandhi, but all the scenes better. All right. That is our show. We will see you next week with all things Halloween, Michael Myers. All right.